Nikki,
Hello, good evening.
good evening. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm not too bad. How are
Good.
you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see. Technology hasn't failed us. That's great. Uh,
No.
how's your day been so far?
A busy one, but that's the standard.
Yes.
Non-stop.
Cool, cool, cool. I'm so glad you could make some time for us. The whole idea for kind of the next 6 weeks, as I've been telling kind of those who are tuned in, is that we're trying to just really help people reconnect spiritually with with the creator, with themselves, with others at this time of kind of just mass disconnection. And so the idea with these conversations, these tea with Templeways, as we like to call them, is just really to kind of hear a bit about your story, hear about how you're kind of coping at this time, and kind of hear a bit about your faith journey as well, because we want to be a source of kind of inspiration and yeah, just reflection for people. And then, of course, you have a real unique added bit of sauce that you can add to this conversation as well, which is going to be massive value to our viewers, I know. But maybe we just start by, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you would kind of introduce yourself, you know, to our listeners.
Yeah, so I mean, my name is Nicole, or some people like to call me Nikki. Um, I tend to just go by, I guess, what it is that I do in life. So I would say, I'm a mother, first and foremost. Um, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, and then I suppose in my more professional life, I'm also a mental health therapist. Um, so it's a balance really, just on a personal level in terms of juggling all those different roles. It
Mm-hmm.
really is a balance. But then also the idea of almost feeling as though you have to practice what you preach, in terms of if you have some expertise in mental health, then you should be able to get it right all the time, isn't it? And that is just not how it goes, because it's a journey. So yeah, I mean, that's who I would say I am.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Um,
So they could probably guess already we're going to be able to hopefully glean some insights from your professional experience. But maybe start by just telling us a little bit. I don't know, how has this whole last 12, 15 months been for you? I mean, it's good timing actually. I mean, you've obviously by now you've heard Boris's announcement today.
yeah.
So there's a little bit of hope at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people. Of course, we don't know how it's going to pan out, but
Mm.
the worst case scenario at the moment is, a few more months, and we could be back to somewhat normal. But yeah, how have you found this whole 12 months, 15 months? How's it been for you?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how I've coped, I definitely think that I went to a place of like denial. I went into like this protected kind of mode where it was almost like regimented, that
Mm,
I kind of stuck to this routine I would do like week in, week out, um, just to try and anchor myself really,
mhm,
um, and to orientate myself. So it's been really overwhelming. And as I said, I've gone into autopilot. Um, I continue to work, work on the front line, as they like to call it.
mm,
Um, and so I felt you feel as though you have to kind of go on for others, because you have to continue to support other people as they're struggling. But I would say, kind of like now, a year in, I'm kind of arriving at burnout.
wow.
Definitely arriving at burnout, where I
Mm,
just feel like, wow, if we didn't have that announcement today, I'm just thinking, wow, how did this gone? I just feel like I just need to have a break and not do the routine, and just kind of vegetate a bit. So
mm,
I think it's
mm,
about listening to yourself, though. I think it's about listening to yourself,
mhm,
um, and not continuing to. Sometimes you have to push yourself and challenge yourself, but not continue to kind of like overextend yourself when you're feeling
mm.
drained. I think it's important to have a balance. So, and just being real with yourself, like that's it. Like I feel drained now. I feel like, okay, I'm glad that this thing, there might be an end to it,
Mm.
because I'm not sure how far I could keep going. So.
surprised with yourself with how resilient you've been, or did you always feel that you had that resilience in you?
Do you know what, in terms of kind of like faith, bringing faith into it, I always feel like, to be honest, the type of person that I've probably not seen a load, but I've seen quite a lot. You know, I've had my own struggles, and I always feel like God has had my back. So when this came, I just thought, well, it's another thing that I'm just going to have to get through, and I didn't really see that I wouldn't be getting through it. You know, I just had to be hopeful and yeah, just it's very much hope, really, that kind of gets you through these things. So I feel like I've overcome quite a lot. So I do feel like I can be quite resilient. And yeah, this is the same thing. I thought, do you know what, I can do this, but at the same time, it will be draining, it will be difficult, it will be hard. So yeah.
So
yeah.
Speaking of your faith, like your faith journey through this time, how have you so part of the inspiration for this whole kind of pilgrimage that we're on, that we're trying to encourage people to take with us, is the idea that from many conversations that I've had, I feel like one of the first things that went out the window when our usual routines went out the window was people's kind of faith or spirituality, maybe in the overt way, like it was just a sense of people started to, it just didn't seem to register in the same way. Maybe because the rhythm was broken of attending a specific place of worship. Maybe that's what aided some of that, but it just felt as though the people's sense of purpose, people's sense of, because when I talk about spirituality, I'm not just talking about, you know, specific religious practices. I'm more talking about the sense of there is something bigger, and I'm plugged into something bigger, and there is a purpose here for me. There's something for me to do in this world. The way I behave and interact with people is important. Like those type of things, like what I like to call kind of real spirituality that is interwoven into our daily lives. It just felt like that kind of thing kind of went out the window for people. How have you found it for yourself?
For me, it is quite a knock. I really miss the gatherings and all the social interactions and connecting. I just think that nothing can replace human connection, like face to face. I think there's nothing more real than that. So that was hard. But in terms of, again, kind of that theme of like hope, I think that's how I kind of maintained my spirituality. I think we obviously had our online kind of gatherings, which was really helpful as well. Again, to kind of like punctuate your week and still connect with people, and just check in with how these times are affecting us, and share and just be kind of like a beacon of support for one another. So that was really helpful. But yeah, it kind of just, I just kind of went into that thought of, you know, well, I need to be hopeful that this will, you know, we'll come through this, that it will pass. And I think in terms of the relationship that I have with God, I would say that I wouldn't say that I'm really kind of like overt about it, and you know, I wouldn't say that it's a very like overt journey, but just in terms of having faith and still like speaking to him in whatever way that is for me. You know, not necessarily getting down on my knees and praying, but just sometimes reflecting and thinking, right, is this it? Is this how it goes? Or just like having a conversation. I think that's the way that I connected, and those kind of like spaces to reflect on what was going on, that was what was helpful for me.
And being on the front line as you have been, firstly, you know, thank you for your service. I know there's something that usually we say to, you know, people who have been at war, but literally you have been at war. You have been at war. You've had no break. Like, ladies and gentlemen, zero break. Like it's you know, with so many people, everyone's seemed to have had pockets of space of kind of rest and reflection, but you've had literally, it's been probably as busy, if not busier than usual, right? So firstly, yeah, thank you for that, because I don't say that lightly. You know, my mum, as you know, was suffered with COVID right near the beginning, and just seeing how the I will forever be indebted to the NHS staff who helped her through it all, and so having that again, that close proximity to what you all have had to do, has definitely filled me with another sense of kind of appreciation for what we have. And even just
Yeah.
looking at that, for me again, when I talk about kind of this broader idea of spirituality, like how we treat one another is part of our spirituality, right? It's not just the vertical, it's the horizontal. And to I think that yeah, for you guys on the front line, the display of you know, human compassion, I think, has been kind of massive. So yeah, so
Yeah.
long way of saying thank you very much for what you've done through this time, especially, you know, as a mother as well. So so would you feel, I don't know, closer or potentially kind of like further away? How do you measure your kind of spirituality, or do you not measure it? Do you just, is it just something that you go with? How overall do you feel it's kind of affected how close
Yeah.
you feel to the divine, let's say?
I would say it's definitely strengthened my spirituality.
Hmm.
Um, just because, like, number one, you don't have all these outward displays of like being, you know, to be able to go to gatherings and meet up, as I said before. But um, kind of number two, I remember the very first days when we went into the first initial lockdown,
Hmm.
and the streets were empty, and you did not know what COVID-19 meant, you know. You didn't know how it would kind of impact people, how it would affect them physically. You didn't know if you was to get it, you was going to drop down and die. You know, you had no idea. Um, and I remember thinking, and also my daughter, she went to key worker school,
Yeah.
and I felt like a great sense of guilt, you know, that I'm kind of exposing my daughter to this unknown quantity in a way, like we should be cooped up at home, and I'm still going, you know, up to the hospital, and she's having to go to school. And literally, as I was driving to work and the streets were like empty, those first days, the streets were empty, and all of the essential workers,
Yeah.
you know, like the bin men, they were literally like congratulating you, saying like, this is, it felt like it's down to us, you know, the teachers,
Yeah.
the you know, the bin men, the people in the, you know, the shops working there. And I just thought, do you know what? The only thing is faith. Faith, because you didn't know that at that time the disease was an unknown quantity. We
Mm.
didn't have any masks or protective equipment or anything
No.
like that, and we
Mm.
still had to see patients and all that kind of business. And you still, you know, exposing yourself to it. So it was scary. And I think the only way that I could overcome that was just, again, that hope and that connection that there's, you know, somebody protecting me out there. So yeah, definitely strengthened things for me.
Mhm. Did you did you did you have it yourself at any point?
I've not. I don't
Wow.
know. Well, I might have been asymptomatic.
Yeah.
Um, but certainly my colleagues have. Unfortunately, some of my colleagues have passed away. Um, which is very sad. But you know, even being in close proximity with people who've definitely had something that appears to be COVID-like.
Mm.
I've not had it myself, but that is, again, thanks to God. But we don't know what might happen in the future. Maybe everyone's destined to have it at some point, just like with the
Mm.
flu. But
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow. Cool. All right, let's zoom out a little bit now and just look,
yeah,
you know, broader at your spiritual journey. So not just over this COVID time, but your kind of whole journey. I wanted to kind of ask you, like, um, about, you know, just some moments in your journey that are memorable, and maybe a moment in your journey where you have felt, you know, a real kind of closeness, or you have felt God at work in your life. Now, this could be during this period, as you have kind of expressed already, that you definitely felt your journey, your relationship with him strengthen, which is awesome. I'd love to hear that. Would you say that this has been the most definitive kind of moments in your faith journey, or do you is there been like another moment you can think of that has been like most definitive or very poignant in your faith journey so far?
I would say in terms of memorable, I think there's probably one main event that stands out, but generally in terms of my faith journey, it has been that kind of, wow, that should have gone left. Like, kind of, God, somebody's got your back. God's got your back. I feel like that's how it's been. I think the most memorable thing for me was kind of the moment that I decided to get baptized. And it was quite an emotional time at the time, because kind of the year preceding that, my grandma had passed away. And I remember just kind of thinking about her, and I was just like, you know what? If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have this faith journey, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have this relationship with God. It was, between her and my mum that nurtured that. And so I just thought, listen, we need to meet again. We need to meet again. And I just had so much faith and hope again, that I thought, I need to take this decision. I was so moved to be baptized and to kind of like start a kind of like renewed spiritual journey. So I got baptized quite late on into my life. I've been brought up in church since a baby, but I think that was kind of moving, and kind of leading up to the baptismal ceremony. I just remember feeling it was just so overwhelmed with emotion. I couldn't even tell you what it was. Kind of like happiness, fear, but also like a presence. And once I went in the water and we did what we needed to do, and I came out, I did feel very much renewed. I felt a sense of peace. It does really feel, it's so, I don't know if it's like an emotional thing, but the feeling of being like renewed, fresh, having the opportunity to start again, it's very real. It's very real. And I would say that I was almost shaking with kind of like emotion, really. And I like to try and play it down. I like to try and hold it down. So it's not because like I wanted to display that. So yeah, I think that's that connection, the journey with my grandmother and my mum, and and that whole process. I think that's when I felt most connected.
So it's interesting that you've so this idea of kind of loss kind of has come up like a couple of times already. So obviously you lost your grandma, you lost some colleagues at work, and so I'm feeling like this is probably a little bit of a direction to go in, because potentially a lot of people watching this either now or who are going to watch this over the course of time are dealing with loss, right? And from your professional perspective now, with your professional hat on, like what kind of advice can you give us for kind of dealing with loss? Because I don't know what you feel, but when this is all over, like I'm just waiting for like a collective kind of mourning for so many lives, like, and I'm sure it's not going to end straight away, the loss of life, but there's so much that's happened already. So kind of what kind of advice can you give us for either dealing with loss that we've experienced ourselves, or how we can walk with others who are dealing with loss at this time?
Yeah. So in terms of, I suppose, dealing with loss or grief, I think it's just about accepting the way that you're feeling, and that the kind of process of grieving someone, it's not like this linear journey, it's not just straightforward. You will kind of go up and down and round and round. There's a lot of stages to it. There's different things that you go through in terms of, anger and denial and bargaining and all these different stages that you go through before you can get to a place of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even this place of acceptance with dealing with loss, I don't think it's a place that you consistently at. I think it fluctuates. I think forever, I think for a lifetime, you'll always kind of bargain. You'll always kind of, I miss this person. I wish that I could speak with them. And it may well be that the acceptance becomes kind of a more like a longer state before you fluctuate back to these things, the feelings of anger and sadness and things like that. But I just think it will always fluctuate. So just going with your emotions, I would say, going with your emotions, and it doesn't have to be a person necessarily. So, I've lost, colleagues and family members, but it could be, life as we knew it. I think that's a huge kind of deal, really. Yeah. Life as we knew it. I mean, there's this hope that we'll go back to some sense of normality. Yeah. But essentially, children, they've lost, like a year and a half of their lives as they knew it, and children, they're much younger and they develop, much more quickly, and so those years that they miss out is so significant in terms of their development. So it's a huge loss. So in terms of, I guess, walking with people who are going through the process, I mean, I probably learned this the hard way but just try not to give advice or, say, it will pass or all that kind of thing. Just validate how they're feeling in that moment. So just, I hear you, and just try and understand more about what it is that they're going through, and let them know.
That's going to be hard for some of us, We want to comfort. We want to give them a word. We want to give them a piece of scripture. We want to tell them it's going to be okay. We want to. You telling us not to do that?
No, because I mean, not that it's our agenda, but if that person is in a place of, for example, severe like anger, or what can you say? That's an emotion. What can you say to change that? Someone's going to feel what they're going to feel.
Yeah.
And the most, I would say is just be with them, try and listen to them, try and, I guess, try and read the cues, and it's hard. Yeah. But just let them know that you are there for them, and just listen to what they are saying. And if they don't want to say anything, then also respect that, because you might not be at a place to discuss it at that time. So yeah, it's really complicated. But I think, in terms of, supporting children, I feel like this again is like an unknown quantity, because who knows how this kind of sense of anxiety and instability would have affected children, what it's going to present like in a few years down the line. So I think it's again about, even with my daughter, the impact has been so significant. And I don't know, maybe fortunately or unfortunately, she was able to go to school and maintain a sense of routine in some way. But maybe that was too much sometimes. But, I plan to just always keep an eye on where she's at. I, try and make sure that I talk to her about how she's feeling. And I think, that's not my area of specialism, but I think as a mother, that's the best that we can do, try and listen to our children, and really check in with how they're feeling.
No, that's massive. That is so true, so important. As a father myself, with 3 kids, it's been interesting to see as well. They're so different, right? So just seeing how they are handling. I think it's so true about listening to your children, because a lot of the time we've got our own kind of agendas or plan or itinerary or whatever for the day or whatever the case may be, but actually you might need to you have to be flexible. That's what I think one of the key words throughout this whole period, like being flexible, being adaptable. And it's really been interesting to me as well, like to hear it, to hear people or what the society or the news or the press, whatever it is, still kind of want us to hold on to elements that may not be there anymore. So, for example, with the whole school situation, with children not in school, and now there's talk of this, like, you know, No Child Left Behind and catch up and all this stuff. But actually, I just think it would be much healthier, and something I would recommend for people to do in their homes, if you can actually, rather than saying, all right, when we go back to school, we need to catch up, rather than saying, like, okay, what has this opportunity afforded? What new avenues has this opened up? What new ways of looking at education or career or life in general has this opened up, right? Rather than what I see kind of from the media and from many people, like a closing down, as to say, like, no, there's only, it's almost as if to say, guys, remember, there's only this path. There's only this path for your life, right? It's education, education, this path, this path, this path. But actually, I think if we can embrace and be like, actually, what is this showing us? I saw it most in the workspace, where you saw many organizations who would never let you work from home usually, because it wouldn't be possible, right? There's no way it would be possible. Within seconds, quickly adjust and everyone be able to work from home. And so it's interesting that when we go back, the tension will be now, like, okay, the cat's out the bag, right? We don't have to do things how we've always done things. How can we be more flexible? Like, how can we be more adaptable? Is our flexibility, or maybe there's a better technical word for it, I don't know, but is it kind of set in our personalities, or can we grow and develop our ability to adapt and be flexible and see opportunities, or is it kind of like a fixed mindset we have?
Well, I don't know. As parents, I suppose it depends on lots of factors, really, as to, you know, how you might manage your children returning to school, you know, whether you decide to put them back into kind of state school or whichever it might be, or whether you homeschool. But I just feel like the government and, you know, the institutions that they keep talking about keeping kind of like mental health as an agenda in school. I really think that they need to listen to what they're saying, and perhaps, you know, I would say write this year off in a way. You know, let the children return to school, re-socialize, and kind of process what they have been through, rather than catch up. You know, I just think, I mean, I work in a therapy service, and increasingly seeing kind of like younger adults. So I would deal with kind of, you know, kind of like 16 up, needing referrals, you know, for adult mental health support. And, you know, there's a direct correlation between, you know, the lockdown and these young people's mental health, and the, you know, sense of pressure, really, that all these expectations that were had of them, all these self-expectations that they had, they weren't able to fulfill. And yet it seems as though there's still this pressure to kind of, well, all right, well, that was just a play, catch up and go ahead. But it has real significant effects for young people and for children. And I would say, you know, it would be, you know, it depends on what people can manage to do, but I would say, would it be a mix of kind of children kind of maybe spending some days in school and some days in, you know, homeschooling, and gradually kind of returning to school that way, rather than, you know, it's so abrupt, isn't it? Like one week you're at home with your parents, and then the next week you're fully back at school. I think it's just about finding a balance. and using kind of like a more graded approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would definitely have mental health on the curriculum for children, like to re-socialize and to adapt and process what has gone on. And yeah, I think for me, I wasn't able to, partake in this whole movement fully because I was still working. But
Yeah.
I guess at some points I was able to, finish a bit earlier and that type of thing. And I just hope that parents can kind of hold on to this kind of, I don't know, this kind of sense of I don't know if it's accountability or responsibility about their children's education, because I know I was of a mindset where, all right, well, they're off to school and yeah, we do the homework, but yeah, the teachers will do it. But now, having to have done the work day in, day out with my daughter, then you see where they're up to and you get really invested. So I hope that, parents will kind of maintain that kind of level of investment and, yeah, just continue to take an interest in your child's, interest, their mental health, their learning, just so you know where they're up to, because, yeah, there'll be lots of factors that might lead up to, like challenges in mental health. And if you're there as a parent, kind of observing and part of the journey with them, I guess there's more opportunity to see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
From your kind of your experience and from your journey, have you found that I've always found it interesting. Let me start with that. I always found it interesting that some of the individuals that I've encountered in my life so far, who have like overtly had mental health issues, sometimes there seems to be like an element of maybe they're spouting texts from the Bible and things like that, or almost like overly religious at times, right? I've had a few strange encounters. Okay, these are extreme encounters, but nevertheless, a few strange encounters like that. Like, the people, maybe an individual on the high road who seems to be babbling to themselves. And there seems to be either referencing some type of beings or something they're seeing and things like that. Have you noticed, or in your practice, do you see sometimes like a converging of kind of like some of these, have you seen mental health almost display or, I don't know what the official word is, but present in some interesting ways that even seem to have like religious implications? Have you noticed anything like that?
Often.
What is that about?
So I guess what you might be kind of describing are kind of like more like psychotic symptoms.
Okay.
And I guess people have like ideas of reference, and the majority of people, I mean, it depends on the culture that you're in, but majority of people have heard of God or Jesus. And the majority of people have probably heard of the Queen. So those really kind of, perhaps in the Western world, those really like publicized figures, they become, an idea to reference. And so when you're thinking of something that is, greater than you and might have overtaken your body or might be controlling your mind, I think those are naturally the references that people go to. Just because of how we've been conditioned in our particular culture or system. Yeah. So I think it's you see it all the time in people.
I thought I was making it up. Good. So there is that kind of it's that their frame of reference. They're just referencing the things that kind of
that seem greater to them, greater than them, that they've grown up to know that, which should be, because what do we get kind of taught at school, or what do we, or even in terms of religion, that there's something that's greater than us that can protect us, or there's evil, or so those concepts of good and evil we learn from a very young age.
Yes.
So it's almost like innate that if we're having if there's like cognitive issues or there's something going on biologically with the brain, that parts of us that are already there would come out and play out even bigger.
Yeah,
So I wonder if that's what
cool.
it's about. Yeah.
Interesting. So has your practice made you think differently about your faith? You know, from you know, young child, always, you know, being around that space, to then choosing this as a profession. Have you how has it kind of aided how you think about the bigger things in life? Do you find yourself almost thinking about your thinking, like, you know, why am I, the same questions you might ask a patient? Do you find yourself kind of asking yourself that in any time around these issues of kind of like faith and like beliefs and things like of that nature?
I think, but ultimately, your values and your beliefs is what impacts upon your thoughts.
Yeah.
So, you know, in terms of trying to understand a patient and what might have gone on for them, you know, you would go back to perhaps what might have happened in childhood and how they might have developed beliefs and certain values. And I think, I don't know if I can, you know, directly compare myself, you know, for example, for someone who's having mental health challenges, like severe mental health challenges. But for me, I do feel as though just generally in my life, the values that I was brought up with, you know, certainly in the church, they have, you know, been a source of conflict from time to time.
Yes.
Or a lot of the time, actually. So I think that in itself has been a journey for me, to come to this place of acceptance where, you know, what I was saying, you know, there's good and bad in everyone. There's, you know, in the world, you know, there's everything naturally opposes. That's nature. And to just come to a place of acceptance that, do you know what, actually, both of these things can coexist at the same time. So just because I do something that was ingrained in me that, oh, that's not good, you know, to come to a place of acceptance that, do you know what, it doesn't actually take away from your character or your relationship with God or you know, your general spirituality. Coming to that place of acceptance, that has been, yeah, that's the journey that I'm on right now, really.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, we're coming round the last bend now. Tell us a little bit about your latest initiative, Focus and Function. Tell us the inspiration behind it, the mission for it, and how we can get involved with it. All
right, well, Focus and Function is like my baby that I've been thinking about for almost like, I think, 2 years. I've had this kind of urge to kind of develop my own private practice. So my journey has been, I've worked in mental health for over 15 years, and I started, what might be different from other mental health practitioners or therapists is that I started, you know, in the trenches, you know, so as to put it, you know, I started as a healthcare assistant, really working with the patients who were very much unwell, very much in crisis on the wards, a very chaotic environments, very dangerous environments sometimes. So I've really seen kind of the extremities of, you know, mental health disorders and challenges. You know, so I've worked my way up, and I qualified as an occupational therapist, which means, you know, generally we just help people to have as much independence as possible within your skill set. So even if you have a disability, trying to make you as independent as you possibly could be. So that's the work that we do. And, you know, it just came to my mind when, just generally in life, as an occupational therapist, how do people know that they're unwell? Either physically or mentally, how do they know that they're unwell? It's when they're not able to engage in their day-to-day activities, isn't it? When they can't, you know, go to the toilet by themselves, when they can't dress themselves, they, you know, can't, they're so overwhelmed with whatever emotion that they can't get out of bed, or they can't face the day, or they're very distracted, or, you know, very troubled. so that they can't engage with their day-to-day things. So we call that kind of like your functionality really. So I thought ultimately, even in terms of the agenda, everything is about being able to function or to have an occupation or to be able to work, essentially, isn't
Right.
it? That's everyone's goal, that's everyone's aim, whatever that occupation looks like, whether it's a social media influencer or it's, a lawyer, that's what everyone's trying to do.
Yeah.
Spend their time doing something meaningful.
Yeah.
So that's what function is, I just think that's imperative. And then as I've kind of come round, I studied psychology. That was my first degree, I should say.
Yeah.
And that's how I initially stepped into mental health. But I studied psychology, and I've come kind of like full circle and started to go into therapy and doing different therapeutic approaches. And I just thought, well, the opposing professions,
Yeah.
they almost kind of they work on different things. So occupational therapists might focus on how do you kind of get to be able to do your day-to-day activities again, and then the therapists are focusing on your internal world. And I just thought I just don't think they should happen in isolation of each other. I just thought they need to be drawn together.
Yeah.
So then that's where the idea of focus and function came from, where you're able to, and again, it's not like a linear journey. I think
No.
it's a cycle more than anything. But if you kind of focus on what's going on in your internal world, it'll help you to think about some barriers, maybe whether that's internal or external, that's impacting on your ability to be able to have a good quality of life, whatever that means to you. So that's where focus and function came from. That's what it's about, really. So essentially, what I hope to do is to be able to work with people to think about practically, I suppose a bit more like coaching and how they can achieve their goals, whilst also addressing what might be going on internally, what barriers might there be that is kind of impacting on you being able to do that. So it's kind of a joining up of the minds, really.
Of the minds. And this is how do we see more about this? Where is it? And
so this is new to me. This is new in the last few weeks. But if you want to check out more about Focus and Function, I have an Instagram page which is @FocusFunction. And you can see kind of some of the concepts that are starting to come out now and have a read, and there'll be plenty more added, and hopefully have a few ideas for the future, and you'll be able to see kind of the project grow. So yeah, that's it. Focus, function.
So what was it's just exciting because I just like the fact that, in the midst of everything that's going on, we've heard so much about, you've been on the front line, you've had a lot to balance, you've seen loss, you've been close to loss, and through it all, you've even found the space and the motivation, really, the intestinal fortitude, as they say, to now even start start your own thing. And that's really want to commend you for that, because again, I just feel like, this time that we're in is not easy. And I just think it's just another testament to your strength, really, the strength that, you've spoken to, the strength that you've also said, the strengthening of your faith that has happened through this time. And even because to step out and even do something at any time takes a lot of strength, really, because it's easier to just do what you've always done, right, rather than to actually do something else and do something on top of everything you're doing. So you've got all our support here at Templeway, and we're going to just continue to promote what you're doing on our platform. Ladies and gentlemen, please do check out what Nikki's doing over at Focus Function on Instagram. Support the post, share the post, drop a comment, and really do invest in kind of what Nikki's doing. Okay, finally, maybe just to give us a few kind of tips and ideas for how we can improve our mental hygiene, as they say, our mental health. Give us a few pointers that can just, obviously, you know, every case every case is unique, and
Yes.
you know, of course, working with you one-to-one is basically the best way for you to really, you know, assist us. But generally speaking, for now, what are some kind of guidelines you can give us as we try and just fine tune and tighten up our cerebral attic, as my older brother calls it, our brains?
Yeah, there's so many. But this is where I'm up to with my page. I'm doing kind of like a series on emotional awareness in terms of how to build your emotional resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people feel as though mental health is the absence of mental illness, which I don't think it is. I think they coexist. And just like with physical health, doesn't mean that you don't get sick. You definitely still do.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's how you're able to fight that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the main thing is, which I've spoken about throughout really, is connecting with your emotions. So I say
Yeah.
be able to, I think, spend some time, even if it's kind of, I don't know, maybe not if it's realistic to do it every day, but make sure that you identify time where you can, I suppose, reflect, whether that's, I don't know, first thing in the morning rather than going straight to like social media.
Yeah.
But lying in your bed and thinking about, okay, what have I got, how am I feeling? What have I got going ahead, you know, this day? I think just checking in with yourself almost. I would say for me, what has been imperative is having a kind of self-care activity to do. And the reason why I might not be concentrating is my daughter's here pointing like this, going, behind the camera, so that's what's going on now. All right, 2 minutes.
We're nearly finished.
But having a self-care kind of task for yourself. So my thing is exercise. And I think that's almost kind of what has saved me actually during this pandemic. You know, I started off walking around the park, jogging around the park, and then I got into this kind of program. So that space, kind of like 30 minutes to an hour every day, just have an activity for yourself to do. I get up really early to be able to do it before my daughter wakes up.
Wow.
So I say invest in some self-care. And I think just generally remembering to try and connect with other people. So it's so easy to get into your own kind of bubble.
Yeah.
And because it just feels easy, you know, you just feel overwhelmed. You're just like, I'm not going to talk to anyone today. But then when you do actually connect with someone, often, sometimes it can go the other way, but often you feel like, I'm glad I had that discussion. I'm glad I had that chat. I'm glad I saw them, you know, on the video, whatever it is. So connecting with people. So I would say those are my 3 tips really, in terms of having a space to reflect, checking with yourself, how are you doing? 2 would be having a self-care activity, whatever that is, whether it's like, I don't know, going to do, well, you can't do that now. I was about to say going to do your nails, but whether it's, you know, whatever
your own nails, maybe. Doing your own nails.
Yeah. What? I'm just talking, 1 second. It's all right.
It's not charging.
Yeah, it's all right. Motherhood.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so setting out an activity that you can do for yourself, and then finally is like connecting with other people, making sure that you maintain a connection.
Yeah.
And there's lots more tips on my page, and there will be more at focused function, so go and check that out.
No, perfect. Nikki, thank you so much. You know, we asked you to be part of this. You said yes without hesitation, and we just really do appreciate it. As I said, you know, we love and support you and what you've got going on. And any way we can do that, we're gonna push and promote what you're up to. So, ladies and gentlemen, please do get involved over at Focus Function. It's been wonderful speaking to you, Nikki. And tell Ari I said hello.
I'm sure she would shout it, but yeah, I will do. And we'll see you online.
Yeah, we'll see you online. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Thanks so
All
much.
right. Take
See
care.
you.
All right. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for being part of today's conversation. I hope you have appreciated it. This is part of our online pilgrimage series. Over the next 6 weeks, we are taking you on a journey. We are encouraging you to reconnect, just like Nikki told us, to reconnect not only with others, but with the divine. The reality is, guys, that for many of us, the first thing that went out of the window when this whole pandemic started was that connection, that vertical connection, right? And if that's you, then really I would encourage you to be part of what we're doing over the next few weeks. We're going to have interviews on Mondays and Fridays. We're going to have daily devotions in the morning, 8 a.m. They'll be recorded, so of course you can watch it whenever you rise in the morning or the afternoon, for that matter. And then we've also got a message that will go out on a Wednesday, a slightly Templeway online, which will go out on a Wednesday. And we've also got what we call the Pilgrims Challenge, which every day we're giving you another challenge to take part in, to really help, again, to connect you with others as we try to just rebuild our spirituality, reconnect with the bigger story that's going on, reconnect with what God wants to do in our lives and wants to do through us in the lives of others. So I'm just encouraging you, get involved with this online pilgrimage, the first of its kind. All right. And I really think that it could have a massive impact on just helping you reconnect with those things that are most important in life. Thank you for being part of this conversation, and see you soon. God bless.